Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Pivot, and I'm your host, Dr. Talat. In today's program, we are discussing about the latest developments in Indian Health Kashmir. As we all are aware, that India has unilaterally taken a decision and has abolished Article 370 of the Constitution, and that has caused a lot of problem in Indian Health Kashmir. This has not only affected the large population of Indian Health Kashmir, but has in fact changed the status of Indian Health Kashmir. When we talk of Indian Health Kashmir, we know that a lot of atrocities are being committed in that region, and torture has become a tool of a weapon of war. And Indian government is very aggressive in trying to suppress the movement of freedom of Kashmiris in Indian Health Kashmir. So what this has for the region, what this has for Pakistan, what this has for India, is very important to discuss. To discuss this very thorny, important issue of Article 370 and subsequent consequences of the abolishing of this act, we have with us to discuss this important issue Ms. Maria Iqbal Tarana. She's a Kashmiri activist and an analyst. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you very much, Dr. Talat, for inviting me to your show today.
Maria, first of all, I would just like to know, in a very precarious situation inside Kashmir, where a lot of forces have been moved to maybe suppress the kind of insurgency they're expecting in Indian Health Kashmir in the wake of abolishing of Article 370. So what is your general comments about the current situation in Kashmir?
Dr. Talat, whatever we have witnessed yesterday, actually, a huge shutdown of internet, curfew, crackdown, and Kashmiris are not there to express what they are feeling at the moment when India has betrayed them big time. And of course, India has silently killed its own democracy. So whatever they dig for somebody else, they had fallen into that. And according to United Nations resolution, and specifically Resolution 91, which was being passed in March 1954, that stayed until 1957, in which it was clearly mentioned that India and Pakistan cannot decide the future of Kashmiri people, and it was very clear that India's assembly or legislative assembly, even they cannot change this status until this is pending in United Nations with that resolution. But whatever India has done yesterday by abolishing Article 370 and parallel another Article 35A, which has already given the status of autonomy to Kashmir. It was actually, it was like, it wasn't we slept at night and something happened in the morning. We were expecting it for a long time, because Modi had a tenure of 5 years, and then again it was in his manifesto that once he will come back, that will be the first priority. And that's why Kashmiri all over the world, they were just saying it to the international community, and even in Pakistan this debate was already being highlighted by Kashmiris, by Pakistani intellectuals, by Indian intellectuals, because everybody knew that where we would see in the future if this autonomous status of Kashmir would have been challenged. And as you can see, since yesterday, there are so many people who have come forward. Even I have heard a few parliamentarians, British parliamentarians, European parliamentarians interviews, and they are being also concerned about this, because India cannot do this without just letting Kashmiri people know, or just taking everybody in confidence, because it's just not about satisfying India's ego, which he did. And we knew already what past Mr. Modi has. He's been extremist, and we were expecting it that this extremist will bring everybody again, even especially these two countries on the verge of war again. So,
okay, Maria, before we discuss in detail, I just setting a context for our talk. For my viewers, just elaborate a bit about Article 370 and 35 and the Clause 35A, so that we know what it actually contained.
Yeah, Article 370, actually, Nehru, who was a Kashmiri himself, and he was ruling India at that time in 1954, when Sheikh Abdullah and Nehru, after this UN resolution, they came to this point. Of course, this is the pending issue in United Nations, but they knew how Indian other people, they were forcing India to make it as a state. So what they did to save it demographical status of Kashmir, and to preserve it as like autonomous status, they included one constitution in their Indian constitution, which was 370, and that has another amendment with the 35A, which doesn't allow anybody to buy a property any Indian to buy a property in Kashmir. And so if Indian can't buy a property in Kashmir, it saves Kashmir by changing it demographically. Yeah, if you remember correctly, Amarnath Yatra Shrine massacre, after that in 2008 it started a huge massacre in Kashmir, and that was the same thing, because at that time in 2008 India wanted pilgrimages to live there for a longer time if they want to stay. Before that it was only a limited time of 30 days, which a permit used to be issued by the Delhi Sarkar, but then they allowed they can stay for unlimited time. And Kashmiris stood up for that. In 2008, this movement started just because Kashmiris said, you can't stay and you cannot allow anybody to live on our land for unlimited time, because it's our land. And at that time, because there was no, they couldn't change that constitution. But that was in India's conscience since that time, that how much Kashmiris are protected for their own land. So what they were planning for the last so many years, and I must say they have not betrayed actually their own constitution or their own democracy. They have also betrayed Kashmiri leadership, who was pro-Indian actually. If you look at the Mehbooba's Mufti tweet yesterday, it clearly says that you know, we political, I'll just a bit, I'm exaggerating here, but you know, in the other means, it's like we political elites were responsible since 1947, because we chose to live with India, and for our own political gains, you know, for their own political gains, 1.5 million people, 15 million people have been living in this hatred for such a long time, and between this uneasy relationship of Kashmir, pro-India, pro-Pakistan, or India.
This is very strange that India even did not consult the leadership that favored their stance for a long time. So, what do you think should be the first focus of Indian leadership when they did? What would they immediately achieve by doing that?
You're talking about Indian?
370, abolishing of
370. Of course. As Dr. Talat, I must say, since as a person who, like me, who was born and brought up in Azad Kashmir, and since we are been growing in this region, we have been hearing about this Kashmir, because it has become part of our genetic code. And I must say, because I have never faced this Armed Force Power Safety Act, which India has imposed in Valley, and this is a draconian law. Why we call it a draconian law? Because as a human, we have a first right is a right to live and another draconian laws like Public Safety Act, Armed Force Power Safety, it gives an impunity to paramilitary forces, to Indian forces, to kill anybody, anywhere, anytime. So yeah, so these things we were been hearing, and when I was born and raised in Azad Kashmir, so I always used to think, what is the difference between us and those people? So at one day, and one day I said, oh my God, I'm very lucky because we are really free, because these draconian laws were never been imposed on us, because we wake up in the morning and we're very expressive people. We never had this limitation of freedom to speech, freedom to expression, freedom to assembly, and that gave me that boosted up my confidence as well. So as you see on the other side, that's a resilience. And as I'm giving you my example, that's me, my generation, people of AJK, youth of AJK. But if you look at the other side, they don't have those rights. They have been fighting for that. And India knows it's just a resilience which they couldn't stop it for 70 years. How are they going to end it when we are living in a dot-com era? It's a dot-com era. Everything is in your mobile phone. Every time something happens in Kashmir, it challenges Modi's credibility. It challenges 1.2 billion Indians' credibility. It challenges Parliament of India's credibility. It challenges Constitution of India's credibility. So where would you think after some times where India would have stand? Okay. And I must say one thing here. We always say what India would have achieved. Honestly, trust me, mark my words, India has killed its so-called largest democracy conscience by abolishing Article 370.
Maria, I've been asked to take a short break.
Yeah, sure.
We'll be back after a short break. Maria, we were discussing about you, in fact, elaborated, quite eloquently about the atrocities, Article 370, 35A, and what India is up to, in Indian Held Kashmir. So let's talk about a bit about Indian public opinion. Like, apparently it appears that Modi actually will try to, go to the public with this, look, I have taken a bold step. No governments could do this before, and I've taken a bold step. I have actually did what somebody couldn't do before. So what, and of course there are senior voices, and in the parliament they also have a position to what they did. So what is general public opinion in India? And what is, what about their certain parliamentarians like Congress and others? So what they talk about this act by Modi government?
Yes, Dr. Talat, we have good and bad everywhere. We know people who sometimes it's hard for them to discriminate between truth and false and right and wrong. But I must say, yes, Indian general public opinion, few of them, because it's a huge country, it's a population of 1.2, and we have only few people we know. They are been living in urban areas like Delhi or Mumbai, and we call them intellectual, but India has one intellectual like Arundhati Roy. I will give her example, and today I have heard that she's been also nominated in somewhere FIR. FIR that why she's instigating a war between India and Pakistan. Can you believe that? Yes, they are the students, they are young people who are already been supporting Kashmir, and they had this protest launched yesterday in Delhi and in Kolkata as well. And that was the same, they are the same people and the same crowd which actually asked a question when Afzal Guru was executed in 2013. And you saw 2 years back, 3 years back, that was the death anniversary of Afzal Guru and Maqbool Butt Shaheed, and in Jawaharlal Nehru University, it was a huge conflict between the university people, between their own administration, between the Delhi administration as well. So this shows you that how much India has been threatened actually to suppress their own people's voices, because they know when it comes to Kashmir, everybody asks questions, everybody has an opinion, because Something which comes from a valley cannot be fallen on deaf ears. Either it's India, it's Pakistan, it's British, or it's America, because everybody knows how Kashmir is important when it comes to South Asia as well. I must say, the rest of the 1 point, it's very hard to discriminate between RSS school of thought people and some intellectuals, because those voices, sane voices, are very limited. And end of the day, if they speak, they are being nominated in FIR as like Arundhati Roy.
Yeah.
So who wants actually this conflict in their lives, or some sort of a disturbances in their life? So India is been already working to suppress those voices who live in Mumbai, who live in Kolkata, who live in Delhi. So that's the largest democracy here.
Maria, when we talk of atrocities in Indian held Kashmir, and we also know that there are reports about torture as a weapon of war in Indian held Kashmir, and Indian Army, Indian forces have been using that weapon for quite some time now.
Yeah.
And of late, we see that they have also moved, 3 days ago, they moved 35,000 troops, fresh troops for reinforcement in Indian held Kashmir, and they also planned some fresh troops too. Internet blocked, various other, complete shutdown in the. So what do you see since there's a situation of uprising? There is uprising since Burhan Wani Shahid's shahadat. So what do you see? There's a fresh wave of insurgency, or what is expected after this act?
Actually, it's not a fresh wave. I would say it's a continuity of that 2016 revolution after Burhan Wani, because it never stopped after 2016. I still remember that was the same summer's 2016 when we started to witness that this has been happening in Kashmir, when they started to use this pellet bullets. Before that, they were using pepper gas. Before that, they were using phosphorus gas. And now they are being dropping these cluster bombs everywhere in Kashmir, and even on the line of control as well. So it's a strategy which has been changing every after 6 months or a year, but it's a continuity, I must say. And I will say, Dr. Talat, it's a very unfortunate situation at the moment, because the people who were expecting that might be some few countries will play their role, because every time when there's a OIC or United Nations or United Nations Security Council's delegations are there, they are being holding some sort of a conferences, and there's a session of United Nations Security Council. Kashmiris expect a lot from Pakistan, and I asked few of the young people from actually Valley, because I saw their pictures when they were holding flag, and I could see that there's troops down there, and they're in hundreds, and these are the few boys. So their destiny is to be die, and that was shocking for me, because he told me, he said, we are not being frightened of death anymore. And that was the thing, actually, after Burhan Wani's shahadat, that was that one verse was part of that Indian Human Rights Commission's report, in which that commission mentioned the frightening thing which we have noticed this time in Valley. Nobody is frightened of death. So if just imagine, if somebody is not frightened of death, you use cluster bombs, you use whatever you want to, but they know they have to fight for their land. And one thing people always ask me, why you believe that Kashmiris are being fighting for a long time? I said, look, there's always different dynamics. You say it as a political dynamics, as a cultural, as a heritage. If you look at in the history, even just go back in the times when British were ruling subcontinent, Kashmiris always have preserved their identity. It was not like you see many other cities in Bangladesh, in India, here, even everywhere in South Asia. They have tried to become somebody, but Kashmiris never tried to become somebody. They stayed what they were actually. And when they saw this partition 1947, and they were being betrayed by their own ruler, that day every Kashmiri actually decided that that's the last time we are being betrayed, because as per our aspirations, because they're very proud of their heritage, their culture, their language, their everything. And if you just try to control that nation, every time they retaliate in a different way, because they educated themselves to this rather, I'm not going in too much into the history, but everybody knows how actually India was being keeping deprived Kashmiri from there were no jobs, there were no schools, there was no colleges, but they uplifted their life since 1947.
Okay, Maria, we'll continue from here. I'm asked to have a break.
Yeah.
We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back. Maria, before I go to the questions that I have in my list, I would just like to know your opinion that, before this act by Indian government, there were many factions in Indian held Kashmir, like Mehbooba Mufti, Sajjad Lone, or maybe Umar Abdullah. They were different. They had different thoughts. Do you think this act of Indian government has united all the Kashmiri factions?
Yeah, I think, just since yesterday I was going through tweets and the different posts and the articles which has been written by people of Valley, either they are living abroad or anywhere in the world. It shows like it has united Kashmiris, no matter what, either that was a mainstream politician, pro-Indian, pro-Pakistan, pro-freedom, as like a nationalist. Now everybody is on the same page, because they understand that autonomous status is being challenged, they are being betrayed, and now because they are not only betrayed first time, it was, as I told you earlier, since 1931, 1947, and again this time. So I think is the time for everyone to wake up, because this time will be more difficult for the Kashmiris, because what I believe is they will have a different way of retaliation, and that would be a very difficult situation. Okay. This is what we see in the future.
Let's discuss something about world opinion, because we bank a lot on international community, because there are human rights violations, and we probably think in Pakistan and everywhere. We think maybe for these tortures and human rights violations, world community will come on board fast. What is the public opinion following this development?
In past, actually, we never had witnessed any report coming from United Nations, and it was our achievement that last year on the 14th of June 2018, after 70 years of this partition, we received one United Nations human rights report, which was very comprehensive, and it showed where India is been committing atrocities, where actually there's a flaw in their constitution, where they are being trying to suppress Kashmiris, where they have actually challenged their right to live. So it was a huge hue and cry actually in Delhi over that report, and we lost so many Kashmiris after that. And if you remember correctly, that very day we lost one of the same boys, like Shajjad Bukhari, who had a huge role to play in lobbying for Kashmir and for the peace process. And after that, we knew that something else is coming. And this year in winters, we had another report from the British parliamentarians, which was from the European Parliament, and that was a 14 pages comprehensive report, and which already was the same opinion as we saw the report which was published by United Nations. It was continuity of that, because India could see this time that every report is coming from European Parliament, every report coming from British Parliament, every report coming from United Nations is challenging its sovereign status of largest democracy.
Okay.
And so, you know, these
Where do you
things,
see?
yeah.
Where do you see international community? Do you explain well, because there are many reports coming from Western
Yeah.
countries too.
Yeah.
Where do you see United Nations?
I'm
Today.
still very hopeful, to be very honest. I must say that wasn't their mistake. Actually, that was something lacking on our end, because since I have become part of this system and I'm been chasing up different reports as well, which sometimes I think it must be, you know, somewhere must not be fallen on deaf ears, but I think that's lack of.
Like Maria, my last question
Yeah.
is that, you know, now there's time to play a role. What do you expect the world community to play? How they should play their role?
Yeah.
Where do you think what Pakistan specifically can play a role?
Yeah.
What Azad government
Yeah.
can play? And of course, there's nothing that Kashmiris in Indian held Kashmir, you know, they're already doing a lot you know, for this freedom. So where do you find world, Pakistan and Azad state government and Azad Kashmir?
Dr. Talat, I would like to say to the world community who have been listening to my voice today, it's not about land, it's not about, forget about Kashmiriyat, just think about the humanity. Because this crisis, and for the last 70 years, our integrity, our dignity is being challenged many times by this Indian government, which are being known to the world as the largest democracy on this planet. So once you just keep challenging integrity, dignity of any nation, what would you think that, you know, just from a human point of view, just think about it. Somebody comes to your house, live there without your permission, just stay there and just put the gun on your head every time. How would you feel? That's what has happened to Kashmiris actually. They are just asking for their right to live. And you know, that resolution, right to self-determination, is always with United Nations. So why we all just come to this point, just forget about either they will choose India, Pakistan, or they want to live free. Just beg United Nations to give their right to live, and just make some arrangement for this plebiscite. Once it's done, then Kashmiris know where they stand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria, Iqbal, Tarana. It was very important discussion, and thank you very much. You came, you traveled all the way from Muzaffarabad to be here with us. It's very important for my viewers to know what is happening in Indian held Kashmir and what is the debate going on. I think it's very important that the stakeholders, the world is the first stakeholder, international community is the first stakeholder. You can't turn blind eye to everything that happens in Indian held Kashmir. There was a report, it's torture, which became order of the day in Indian held Kashmir. You know, this is just about 432 people who suffered at the hands of Indian paramilitary forces, Indian forces. And a lot more is happening. So world community is the first stakeholder, and I think they should wake up to the call of Kashmiris who are suffering. State government, I always say they should raise their voices. They should go across the world to make people listen what is happening in Indian held Kashmir. Kashmiri voice, pure Kashmiri voice should be heard everywhere in the world. And of course, Pakistan is very important stakeholder. And it's very heartening to know for a soldier like me to listen to the handout of ISPR that Pakistan will go to any extent to help Kashmiris to get their freedom. And I think it's very important, all of us in Pakistan, in Azad Kashmir, and in Indian held Kashmir, to know that we have been paying a cost for it, and we are continuing to pay a cost for it, and we will pay a cost for it. People in Indian held Kashmir, though I never wanted to make this comment, they have had enough of sufferings. I think this is time for all of rest of us to suffer, maybe. That's all for today. Until next week, Allah Hafiz.